Welcome to Exploring Every Angle, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of creatives from all walks of life. I'm your host, Thomas Powell, a video editor immersed in the YouTube space. In each episode, I sit down with guests from the creative world to explore their journeys, unpacking their upbringings, passions, and their goals that drive them forward. Hello and welcome back to the very final episode of the first series of Exploring Every Angle. And for today's episode, we have an interesting guest on board. It's a creator that I've been working with for the past few months. His name is Anthony Bucci, and his channel is called the Bucci List, and it mainly features different stories of craftsmanship. Particularly, that's the main focus in and around Asia, from China to Tokyo. And I think he's going to have some really cool stories today to chat about on this episode. So welcome aboard, Anthony. Thank you for being here.
By the way, first things first, congratulations. I haven't really seen you face to face since the good news. And that's super exciting.
Right, yes, thank you. Yeah, little baby girl due in March. We're getting the nursery full now, so currently got a cot in there that needs to be built. Actually, we've got the beds because we've got a bedside crib, which will be obviously for her when she's up to 6 months, and then she goes into the main cot in the nursery. We've got a little bouncer. We've got all sorts. We've got some toys now. We've got books. So yeah, the nursery is filling up. We're excited.
That's so cool. It's so exciting. I can only imagine.
Definitely a very exciting chapter of our lives for sure. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm ready for it.
Do you have a name picked out, or is that a terrible question?
We do, but we're keeping it to ourselves for now, just in case we decide to change it nearer to the time, because we have a favourite, which we've had for a while. There are a few other alternatives that are kind of close to that name that we could also go for. But yeah, we're just keeping it to ourselves, and we're not going to put any pressure on it in case we just want to change it towards it. Because you never know sometimes. Some people say, like, once the baby's born, they might then opt for another name and be like, oh, actually, they don't look like this. This name suits them more. So
the name doesn't quite fit the face. We're going to change this.
Yes, I've heard that so many times, though. So I'm like, okay. But I think we will settle on the name we have in mind, but we're keeping it to ourselves, and then we'll announce it. Yeah, we'll announce it once she's here. So as I mentioned, your channel mainly features craftsmanship and different types of, artisans and talented people, and you interview those and show their life stories pretty much, and what they're doing and how they do it. Where did this interest spark for you? Were you always interested in different kind of craftsmanships and things like that from a young age?
I would actually probably say no, believe it or not. Okay. And I would say this specific interest that I've been working on the channel and the videos that you and I have been working on recently, it's kind of a new interest. I've always been passionate about people who were passionate about what they did, whether musicians or actors or guitar makers or whatnot. That's something that's always interested me in sort of a general sense. Mm-hmm. But keying into it and cluing into it the way that I've been doing, I would actually say it's a really new interest. And okay. I think the first moment, or the first time I dove into this world of craftsmanship or artistry or kind of along the lines of what you're saying, was one of the first videos I did in Taiwan of a knife maker. And it was, at the time, I was just looking for interesting stories to film, because it was something I was kind of almost experimenting with. And I got tipped off to a really interesting story that as far as I could tell, hadn't really been told by a friend in New York. And It was a knife maker, a blacksmith in Taiwan. And it was so thrilling to be in his workshop and to film the whole thing and to get a knife made for me and to be in that whole world, that I started to wonder, well, who else could I film that does something similar to this? I think at the time I was almost thinking about just like interesting jobs or interesting people. Not to take it too far away from your question, but when I first started kind of thinking about making content, I really didn't want to do it at all. And but one kind of daydream angle I had was, it was kind of like this code word I had in my brain. I called it like the people project, and I just wanted to film sort of everyday people in their lives. And there was one person I met in one of my travels in Morocco, and I thought that she was a young woman on the train, and she was just fascinating and really had kind of an interesting life story, and I thought it'd be so interesting to show her story to the world. I don't see anybody filming just queuing into people without the big clickbaity title, without the really big hook.
For sure.
There's some complications to that. Obviously, privacy. If these people don't have public businesses, like a craftsman or a guitar maker. So I kind of had to shelve that. And there was a time when I was actually experimenting with just talking and telling stories. I had a bunch of videos on my channel that I deleted, but one night I was just like, you know what? I don't want to be a vlogger. I'm going to put a camera in my apartment, light a candle, and I'm just going to sit here and tell somebody about something that happened in Taiwan. And I did it. I had no idea what I was doing. And I woke up and I had like a bunch of comments, very low views, like 200 views, but like 30 comments. And I just thought, oh, there's something here. But I was really reluctant to film anything that would give away the adventure for someone discovering travel for the first time. But it was that knife story that made me think, oh, I think that would be really interesting. And I actually think that would enrich people to learn about. To get directly back to your question, I think it's just kind of a new thing. I don't know if there's anything in my previous life experience that really points to artisans, really.
For sure. That's cool though. So it's initially filming that very first video that inspired you then to, create the path which you're now going down, and you've made many more videos like that since, interviewing different types of people, and particularly in Asia. So where did the inspiration from, or fascination with Asia come from? Have you always been interested in that part of the world for a while?
Yes, but in kind of like a under the radar sense. I will say that my favorite, I used to take trips with my father when I was a little bit younger. My family's Italian, and Greek actually, but stronger on kind of Italian influence. And we had relatives in Italy. So I was lucky that growing up, I would get to travel to Italy during the summer and see relatives there. But as I got a little bit older, my father and I would take trips to other parts of Europe and stuff like that as kind of like a father-son thing. And the trip that I was sort of the fondest that I took with him when I was younger was going to Japan in 2011. Up until that point, I was sort of interested in Asian culture. I had friends that studied Chinese in high school, and I always thought that was so cool. I studied Mandarin. Just in my community in South Carolina where I grew up, I believe there's a Fujifilm factory and a Nissan factory. So we had some Japanese students in our high school, and we had some Japanese things in our hometown that were catered more to a Japanese American community rather than like pure Americans interested in Japan sort of thing. So it felt a little bit more real, but I would say I was aware of it and interested in it, but it wasn't really a part of my life. It was something I just kind of off to the side. If you talked to me long enough, maybe it would come out. But directly doing this work in Asia, it all started with this trip I took to Taiwan, right when Taiwan opened in 2022 in October after the pandemic. Before that, I was taking these trips every 3 or 4 months to different parts of the world. And I was exploring, trying to figure out how to create something or make something out of it. I did a blog for a little while. I didn't love doing that. I did some other little film stuff. I never really took it very seriously. When I got to Taiwan, I really fell in love with it. And I think it was a really good combination of time and place. It was very sort of otherworldly, especially in October 2022. Not a lot of travelers there. The whole reason I went was I had a friend who did taught English there for a while, and I was hearing his stories at a wedding a month or so before I went. It was fascinating to me. And then I was talking to somebody else, and they said, I don't know anything about Taiwan. And so I just thought, I got to go. It seems so interesting. And I actually loved it so much. I was there the end of November, first week of December, that I came back to New York. I told my friends and my family that I was going back in a month. And everybody thought I was insane. And the funny thing about that is, that's the first time in my life people had thought I was sort of insane. I'd heard other people tell these stories, when you're onto something, people might think you're crazy. But I never, you don't really know what that feels like until you're in that situation, because people don't say that in a passing way. They say it in a way that they're concerned about you. Are you okay? Why would you go back? So you really have to stick to your guns sometime. But it was that trip that really made me be intrigued by Asia. And then when I went back a month or so later, I had bought a camera and I was determined to film something. I didn't know what. I knew what I didn't like. more than what I wanted to do. When I went back, I was there for about, I would say 6.5, 7 weeks.
Wow.
And
Okay.
a lot of stuff happened during that time that kind of made me think that this part of the world is really intriguing to me.
Obviously, you've traveled to different parts of Asia, like Taiwan. You've been to parts of China as well, and you're now currently stationed in Japan. What's been the most unique or surprising craft or tradition you've come across right now, which has really like wowed you? It doesn't have to be something particularly that you film for a video either.
There have been a lot of really cool things. But the one that stands out the most are the Haenyeo, Jungmin and Sohee in South Korea that I filmed.
Right, okay.
I didn't even really know that this was a tradition until I got to Korea for the first time. And I can't even tell you how I learned about it. I actually put this in the video. I don't remember if it was a guidebook or a friend mentioning it in passing, but I was blown away that I didn't know about these women that were free divers and did it until their 70s or 80s. It was, for all intents and purposes, very much a dying tradition. And it seems so cool and so interesting.
What type of diving is it then? What exactly does it like involve?
They're seafood divers. They mostly grab things off the ocean floor, but I think they, depending on what they're catching, they can also catch it with nets. And I don't know if they spear things. They might, but they're diving very deep for having no oxygen tanks and
of course,
meters and meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, something crazy like that. But they're seafood divers. That's tradition, and only women do it. So
when you're showcasing these different craftspeople and you're showing all the whatever it is, if they're coffee makers to the more kind of like the Haenyeo, like you mentioned, how do you approach documenting their work and keeping it in a way that feels authentic?
That's such a good question. It really is. I try to think about the vibe of the world that they're in, and I try to fit that with the pacing and the rhythm and like the musicality of the videos.
Sure.
Somebody like you being a great editor is such a great help with that. Sometimes you have to kind of be like water, you have to kind of flow with it. It may not go exactly the way you think. The challenge and the exciting thing is to keep the flavor of how you want to tell stories consistent in these different worlds. And being able to have some flexibility to tweak it a little bit. Like the coffee master in Kanazawa he was super nice and had some sort of modicum of being loose, but he was very formal and very inviting, not cold or distant, but very formal. He played classical music. He put on Mozart's Requiem while I was in the shop filming him. And he did that the first time that I met him too. This wasn't like, he wasn't hamming it up because the video was on or the camera was on.
Sure.
So that video, if that were like a silly video that had a lot of retention edits in it, it would be ridiculous, I think. Mm-hmm. I guess you could do that if you were just trying to capture an audience. But with that video, we tried to kind of make it like a movement of a symphony and really make it a little bit more artistic, a little bit more poetic, because it's an 82-year-old man playing the Requiem. I mean, that's like he's at the end of his life playing something you play when somebody passes away in remembrance. So I try to do that sometimes, or most of the time, try to just like, what is the world we're living in? What is the story we want to tell? And what is the vibe here?
Obviously, out of all the videos, you mentioned the female divers. What have been some of your other favorite videos so far you've worked on?
I'm going to sound like a school teacher. They're all, I'm happy with all of them, but like the ones that when my mind goes to like, what is, and we can talk in a few minutes about like where I think this might go, but up until this point, when I think of videos that I was just like, the views be damned. Like, what video did I think I am so happy that I got the opportunity to do that, and I would fight like hell for people to see this, not for me, but for like what's going on. The video that I filmed with Lily. So Lily she's a tribal elder. I think she's in her 60s. First of all, she's grandmother. I think she's the daughter of a shaman. I think either her mother or father was one of the last shaman in the village, called Taramak, by the way. And they're part of the Rukai tribe of Taiwan. But long story short, she has started a restaurant called Dawana, which uses food only from the tribal land. And she cooks ancient recipes, ancient tribal recipes. And it's a restaurant that invites outsiders to go there. And by the way, she's pursuing a PhD, which she is writing in English at the intersection of tribal culture and tribal cuisine. So her big thing is preserving her tribe through recipes and through food. It's incredible that the food that she makes it feels like ancient recipes that are extremely enticing. But she's fighting this tradition thing. Like if you're in this village, you probably want a little bit better life for yourself. There's a limitation to what you can do in a small village. Your traditions are going to be different if you move to Taipei and work in finance, but that might provide an upgrade of a life in some ways. But I invite people to really check out her restaurant if they're curious. It's called Dawana. It's a very, very cool thing she's doing. There's so much footage from that video that really couldn't make it into the story the way that I tell stories, but it was totally immersive. And that felt like a video that was really important because I learned a lot. Sometimes I think I want to go back. I want to shoot something else with it. I want to, can I leverage a little bit of the magic of marketing can I put a little bit of, clickbait sprinkle on the next video to get more people to watch this? Because I just think what she's doing is so important. That video for sure. Being in the jungle of Taiwan. I mean, it's that's incredible.
Something that that's just incredible to even say. Like, who gets to do that?
Did we ever talk about how that story happened?
I can't.
Maybe
remember.
It's worth saying right now. I was in Taipei, and I really wanted to film an indigenous culture. For most people, I think when they think of Taiwan, I don't think they know what to think. And I was definitely in that camp a couple of years ago. Do they speak English there? Do they speak Mandarin? What kind of people are there? What's the history? It's sort of, they know there's conflict with China, but that kind of, and they make things. But for most people, that's sort of it. So I was in Taipei, and it was still it was that trip to Taiwan I took, the first one in 2023, or the second one, the first one when I was filming things. And one night before dinner, I'm just Googling anything I can. And I found this article, an eater.com article by this brilliant journalist named Clarissa Wei. She actually just released a cookbook on Taiwanese cuisine, and it won not James Beard, but some other huge food award. It won the award. So kudos to her. And she's a brilliant journalist. Awesome. Taiwanese American, lives in Taipei now. But I read this article of this woman named Lily who was trying to save her culture through cuisine. And seemed sort of perfect. It was in a part of Taiwan I'd never been. Googled her restaurant. I found a website that looked like it was written at the beginning of the internet. It looked like something that was like floppy disks era website. And there was a hotmail.com or something email address. And I just thought, that's not good, but
proper old school.
I'll give it a whirl. And I shot an email, and then I went to dinner. I came back, and it was like one sentence. It was like, "Hi, Anthony. Yes, come." And I was blown away. It was like 2 hours later, and I was blown away. And so I literally booked a flight 2 days later to Taitung, where she lives. And so, just finding her was sort of chance and luck and throwing the dice. I could have easily just said, that doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. Just, forgotten about it.
Obviously, with her, you reached out to her via email. So what's your general process then when you're reaching out to people and you see someone and you think, oh my gosh, they're a great fit for a video, like this person, their craft would make an awesome video. Is it always you contacting them, or sometimes do you get recommendations? Do you get people come to you? Sometimes is it word of mouth?
It's all almost like chance. And I sometimes get really nervous about that because it's like, is the well going to dry up? Probably not, but it's there's not like a process on my wall of like X, Y, Z. Right. I need to do these keywords. I don't know if that's the smarter way to do it. We'll figure out. But most of the time it's it's either something I come across, or it's like a gut feeling of wanting to film something. Like the suit video in Hong Kong, I wanted to film tailors. The guitar video, Nick Sugimoto, Sugi Guitars, I wanted to film a guitar maker. But other than really those two, it's almost always something I stumble across, reading, Sally was an advertisement in a guitar store that I wasn't even looking to film a guitarist. I saw this really
Right,
intriguing
yeah.
looking young woman
Yeah.
guitarist, and I was like, "Who is this?"
That's a recent video that we've just worked on, isn't it? The Sally video. She's just a really, really talented metal guitarist. She plays, in a band that is just focused of all women as well, featured all women, which is more of a popular thing now in Japan, isn't it?
It's been around for a while, but it has not been mainstream
Yeah.
until recently.
Right.
Which I think we did a good job clarifying in the video. This is one of the first videos I've had people be so passionate about commenting,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
is interesting. It's definitely been the most comment heavy video so far. And the thing that's so interesting about it is I keep thinking not, it's good for engagement. Oh, X, Y, and Z. It's good for numbers. I keep learning by what these people are writing. It's like you have like a room full of teachers telling you things, and it's so cool. And people are one commenter actually wrote some very tongue in cheek, like, "This must have struck a chord, huh? Because I've never seen people write such novels." And it's these lists of people are spending like 40 minutes writing every famous or every favorite Japanese quote unquote girl metal or women in metal band. It's so fascinating. I'm just like a popcorn. I'm just reading, the West. If we hone in on this type of music in the West, this kind of isn't that popular anymore. Young people playing rock, alternative rock, heavy metal rock. That's even the concept of bands is not really as popular. So it's a lot of solo artists, at least in America. And so they're preserving this thing that we kind of invented in the West in a way, but they're like really making it their own and preserving it.
I do think, metal's definitely still here as well, but I just think it's different to what it used to be. If you go back to like the 70s and the 80s, they're definitely they've put their own stamp on it as well, especially with like the full kind of, all female metal bands as well. You don't really see that here. And it's that idol culture, isn't it? That especially in Japan, they have that they've kind of infused. So no, it's fascinating. I find myself learning quite a lot through your videos myself, just even editing them.
Oh, well, yeah. Thank you. I mean, but and same here being on the ground filming it. It's just like it's almost like every time it's like a crash course of learning things.
So when you were learning about these traditions, have you ever actually participated in any crafts and got involved and learnt new things with, anything in particular?
I think fortunately for everybody involved, the answer is generally no. But I'm trying to think. With being with Lily in Taiwan, I did pull some weight there with gathering food or showing up and stuff like that. Not a lot.
Yeah.
I did a video on a famous sake brewery in Kyushu in the southern part of Japan, and at one point I actually got to stir the mash of rice, and I felt like, who's the host that does like the odd jobs, the travel? I don't know what is. I forget his name, but that was probably the closest I've gotten to doing any of these crafts. I don't know. For some reason, I'm happy that I get to observe and not participate too much.
You just kind of observe, kind of document it all. That's kind of where you prefer to kind of stay. But no, I think it is cool sometimes if you kind of get a chance to have a bit of hands-on if you do have it. But I feel like as well, sometimes you do get inspired by the videos as well. I know particularly, Nick Sugi, who you mentioned earlier, that particular video that inspires you to go back and start playing the guitar again after, being at his workshop. So you also have that side of it as well, like all these different things that you're documenting, you can also be inspired by.
Yeah, wow. You're right. It's life has been very busy and very chaotic right now, so I don't get to always think about it that deeply, but that's you're right. It may not be getting involved directly in the craft itself, but it might be kind of getting involved in the spirit of what they're doing in some way.
In terms of your channel, let's talk a bit more about that. So
sure.
It's still quite a young channel, I feel. It's still got a lot of growing to do. You're approaching 10,000 subscribers. You'll probably hit that quite soon. And, the videos, the more you've been doing, they have been progressing as well. So how is just the content creation side of things been for you in general? How have you been finding it?
Just doing it as like basically full time, right? Well, yeah, pretty much full time. What does it feel like?
Yeah,
I actually enjoy it a lot. I don't really. I like the blend that we were talking about this a couple days ago, but I like the blend that I'm not. It's not for me. I'm not saying that other people should do what I'm doing at all. But I like the blend that I'm only in like parts of the video, and the video is generally focused outward. I'm just kind of here to guide it a little bit and be involved.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get more involved as it goes. I know I can imagine why that might be a good idea for retention or whatnot. But I like it a lot. There are frustrations to it. For sure. I love the storytelling aspect of it. One of the things I love so much about it is getting to meet these people, and now they're sort of part of my life. They're sort of friends in a way now. I love that. I love that part of this job is connecting with people and not just kind of like a woo-woo sense, but actually, getting to know them. And now they're sort of people that stay in your life in a way. Not to talk about the henyo to death, but I'll hear from them, almost every other week or something, or they'll say something or comment on a video. I think it's so cool. I think the stories that I've tried to focus on and that I'm happiest about are, I would love these to be stories that when attention is brought to them, they can improve what's going on. I think attention can ruin things too. I don't really have control over that so much, but that's been a rewarding thing about it. That's something that's felt like pushing through all of the incredible amounts of frustrations that go through. We could probably have an entire podcast about, honestly, Thomas, it's not if things go wrong or when things go wrong on a shoot like this. It's what things are going wrong. It's not if or when. It's what is going wrong today.
There's always things that can arise that you just have to be on the lookout for and expect every time, because that's just part and parcel, I think, of creating content. No, yeah, for sure. But I think it's more how you adapt to that, and if you at least anticipate it as well, you can kind of handle it better. But overall, I'm glad to hear that you're kind of enjoying the journey with everything you've done so far, and you're making good progress. You've hit some good milestones.
Well, thank you. Yeah. It helps to have brilliant editors like you, and I'm not just saying that to be cute. It's vital.
How has that been for you, actually? Just obviously, because that's one of the other questions I had. Just having an extra pair of hands helping, like whether it's an editor like me, I believe you have worked with other editors as well before me, and sometimes you do get extra help with thumbnails. How is it just having like that help in place to kind of help with your videos?
It's essential. But I would say if anybody's starting out, it would be really important to learn how to edit basically, which is what I did. And because it helps inform how to shoot the videos or do the podcast or do anything like that. And I think you really need to start with your own exploration before you start hiring people. Anybody who's worth their salt in the world of editing or thumbnail editing or anything, they're gonna look at the client and ask what is the story you want to tell? What is the look and the vibe of the thumbnail you want? I think the last position you want to be in as a content creator or a storyteller, if you really care about what you're doing, is to just put it in other people's hands. Not because you can't trust them, but because that individual stamp of who you are will go away. It will go into, it will become generic pop music that any 10 of the top 40 artists could have recorded. The real stamp of who you are, I think, comes from having to get out a piece of paper and draw, even if eventually want somebody else to design the house or the painting or something.
No, I completely agree. Like in the early days, you just obviously taking on all like everything, like the editing. It gives you appreciation of just the structure of how to edit to begin with, but also, like you said, it's very helpful when you film, because then when you're filming, you're not only thinking of filming different shots, you're thinking about like the editing process, or how will this look? Is this the right kind of like angle, or is this the right kind of footage that I need to be getting? I need to make sure I get plenty of B-roll rather than just a little bit of B-roll. More is always better than just a little bit, because the more you've got to work with and the more options, the better. So I think when you start out, if you start out doing those, like the editing from the get-go, and then hire, like you said, that is very good. And it helps you as a creator, like just learn as well, and I think develop better.
And you get to be terrible, and like that's so helpful too, to be terrible, or to
'cause you learn from everything.
You learn from everything. When you have to stare at your own footage and realize that you sabotaged it unknowingly or ruined it, you really learn. Like, it hurts when you're back in New York and you're not on the island of Kinmen and you really need the shot, but it was out of focus, or you had your thumb over the microphone, or that's how you learn.
Yeah, no, for sure. With your channel in general, what's your ultimate vision going forward, and do you have any future goals in mind that you want to achieve?
I'm actually thinking about that a lot right now. I'm just gonna be honest. The one thing that I really want to discover or figure out, and in time, doesn't have to be tomorrow, is I do want to hone it a little bit more to what is the little bit more narrow world we're living in here. And, I have ideas about what that is. And I'm looking back at some of the videos that I've done. There are some common threads. There are a lot of impressive women in interesting professions. That intrigues me a lot. Having never walked on planet Earth for 1 minute as a woman, it's fascinating to me to learn what their lives are like, especially these women who are doing bold, unconventional jobs, potentially in arenas where they might be discouraged to do it, or they might have pressure to do something more practical or traditional or culturally appropriate. That's interesting for me. This last video on music is super intriguing. My background is in music. I went to undergrad and grad school to study classical music. So I do keep thinking that there's a little bit of a void of somebody doing what Bourdain did for food, but for music, if that makes sense. Yep. Kind of like, what is the music of the world situation, or what are the untold music stories? I think that's really interesting. I'm kind of inclined to keep the next few videos kind of along the path of like what I think these interesting stories are, and maybe go back to a place that I haven't been to for a while. Like, I've only done one story in Korea. Korea's hard.
I can imagine.
No, it's beautiful when it works. I've both been welcomed the most intensely there, and also felt like I was in the most foreign environment as an outsider. So I'd love to do another video in Korea, but I really don't know yet. I guess this Sally video, we'll see how it performs. And maybe there's something to the music angle, because I've paid dues in that world. I know it.
Yeah, no, you definitely have done a fair share of featuring music on your channel. But I think how you answered that's perfectly fine at the moment. And as I said, you're still kind of like a young channel in terms of growth. You're still growing, and as you continue to grow, I think you'll figure out more of, I guess, your niche over time, and you might be able to hone that down a little bit more. But at the moment, as I said just a bit earlier, at your last few uploads, they are doing well. They're doing better with each upload. I feel like personally they're getting better. You can see growth there already. So I think at the moment, there's not really anything to change. I don't see anything really going wrong to change just yet. So I think it's pretty good to kind of still carry on with what you're doing. And then when you get to a point of when you've got more of an audience, also you'll have more opinions coming through from people. You might have people voicing different opinions of other things that they might want to see that you might not have even thought of at that point, that could take you into a different direction. So you're still in that area at the moment. Yeah. And I think that's another reason why, it's nice to have like yourself on the podcast as well. Cause I've had some people on here that are kind of like well into like I guess more the height of their careers right now. And I've had some people that are more at the end of their careers, but for more so you're kind of more still at the start and you're growing. So it's nice to have someone on board who's making those starts of their journey and just kind of speaking about that a little bit more and that side of things.
Well, thanks. That means a lot. Moments like now, I'm able to see that there is something exciting about that, because I've been in this situation at other times in my life, and we can all lose track of like, oh, this is sort of like the exciting part of the journey. Like, I guess sometimes founders talk about that with companies, right? When they become like I have a lot of my friends in New York work corporate jobs, interesting jobs, but corporate jobs. And one of my friends there he works for Deloitte, and he's a project manager. He's very good at his job, and he's a college friend from music days and all that. And he's been very sort of constantly reminding me, he's like, at some point your job is just going to turn into like managing people more than anything else. And you see that a lot. The founders turn into CEOs. They turn into managing the operations of the ship as opposed to just out there like rowing. And I feel like I'm still very much rowing. For once, I'm trying to enjoy that, because in the past I've always just wanted to just get past that.
So is there any general advice that you would have that you could say now for, say, somebody that was in your position that wanted to move to Asia and start a journey like yourself? You're currently stationed in Japan. And you've been there for a while now. And you've got your own apartment. So how long are you actually there for? Are you there for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, that's my goal for right now. I mean, like, I have a lot of great friends here, and I like it here. It's centrally located. It was kind of a toss up between Hong Kong, Taipei, and Tokyo. I kind of like them all, but this is the one where I made a lot of friends early, and Japan offers a lot. It's not because those other places are less cool. I think in a lot of ways, actually, Taipei is probably my favorite city. But I would say this: if you're just thinking about moving to a new place, we don't really talk about this as a skill, and we should. It's important to know how to make friends, because when people can't do that, it really hurts. And I don't think it's because people are unable to do that. Almost everybody has friends, right? It's just that it's not thought of as like a skill that you have to really work hard at, and you actually do, I think. And I would say that's one of the biggest things I can recommend if you're going to move to a place that's far away from home and it's not familiar. Have avenues where you can make friends, and the best way to do that is to go and do things that you enjoy doing that have a group component, because it really only takes one person who you really hit it off with to open up an entire world. I have that one friend in Japan who I now have 20 friends and have dated wonderful people because of this person. And it came from joining a fitness club, and they just hit it off. And I think that's really important.
That is important. No, that's awesome. And especially moving to another country, it can feel lonely if you don't do that very quickly. So getting out there, get involved in social clubs, and you've benefited now, like obviously having friends that have been able to then help you with videos as well.
100%. 1,000%. I was somebody that I was dating a little while back, a wonderful person. I got their help getting the video of the Coffee Master in Kanazawa. They literally picked up the phone for me and called. I don't think you should make friends or date people for the benefits like that, but like, it's something that is it's a world that opens up to you. We have friends because life is hard, and they can help, and we can help them.
I've really enjoyed having you on here today, Anthony, to talk about your YouTube channel and growing the channel, and just all the different, things about Asian culture and everything you've learned so far. It's been really fun to have you on board. So thank you so much for coming on here today and being part of my last episode of the first series. I've really, really appreciated it.
No, thank you, Thomas. It's been great talking with you, and I hope we get to do it again sometime. And it's especially interesting to hear your perspective. Yeah, I'm honored to be on the show.
Yeah, no, awesome. No, absolutely. So thank you for everyone tuning into this episode, and more importantly for the whole series. If you've checked out, some of the other episodes, really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed them. Please leave some comments on social media if you ever have feedback. I'd be really interested to read it and take on board any notes that you guys might have. But yeah, thank you so much for being on board. There'll be more updates after my baby girl's born, probably a few months after that, maybe halfway through 2025. I might start planning a second series and get some more guests on board. So thank you so much for listening. This has been the very last episode of Series 1 of Exploring Every Angle. So see you again very soon.